Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I mean, Fuego here.
And producer Dave.
Back to do another movie review for you guys. We've been putting a lot of them up, but we actually haven't recorded a lot of them recently. You've been seeing a lot of our Season 3 reviews.
Sorry.
Which is, a couple of years old at this point, each of those. But nonetheless, we're here to talk about a brand new movie that is actually one that you might have missed your chance to see in the theater if you didn't go when we did tonight.
One night only.
Yep. We went and saw Primal Rage.
Not the video game.
Not the video game. No, I do think of that every time, though. I'm like, is this
too.
about dinosaurs fighting? That would be awesome.
And it's not about Richard Gere and Edward Norton.
Well, that would be Primal Fear.
Right.
But yeah. So anyway, guys, this one we actually did a trailer reaction for a few months back, and we were all like really on board. We were like, oh, this is cool. This is like a giant ape. Like, I didn't really... It's a Bigfoot movie.
Yeah.
It's a Bigfoot
Sasquatch.
movie. Sasquatch. But they do try and go into the actual sort of would-be origins of the Sasquatch folklore, at least as far as the Native American side of it is concerned. So we are going to talk about this one, you guys. It's, again, not available in the theaters, so you're going to have to try and wait until it becomes available on VOD, which I imagine...
It is available on VOD.
Oh, it is as of tonight now?
Yeah, you can watch it on demand for $10 or whatever it is.
Okay, cool. Well, that makes sense now that they've released it on the Fathom events, that you guys can watch it now too. So we're going to jump into this like we normally do. We'll talk about our overall thoughts, then we'll hit the story, the acting, the effects, all of that good stuff in turn. So I'll start off and say that while I did enjoy the movie, because like the first and most important thing I think to say, which Dave mentioned after we got out of the theater before we shushed him for the review, is that this is the most I've ever seen Bigfoot in a Bigfoot movie.
Yes.
Truly.
Which is
they
really
didn't
cool.
skimp on the Bigfoot in the back half of the movie.
No, they did not skimp on it at all, which is nice. However, my flip side of the con to the movie to me was the pacing was so dramatically all over the place, and it was frustrating the hell out of me.
A little indulgent.
Yeah, exactly. So that's me. I've got the yays from column A, and I've got the nays from column B. So, Fuego, what about you?
I was mildly entertained, I guess. It was more violent than I was expecting it to be, which was a redeeming quality. I thought the kills were pretty good. But, the acting was kind of hammy, and I agree with you about the pacing. It's a 100-minute movie. It felt like a 2-hour movie. They could have easily trimmed 20 minutes from this, and it would have been a much leaner, meaner film, and maybe more entertaining for that sheer fact. 100%. But I really liked the look of the Bigfoot creature kind of thing and stuff, and once again, I'm happy we actually got to see him, because in the trailer it was just glimpse here, glimpse there, and so on, and there's lots of movies that do that, but yeah, they actually had a good creature design, and they gave some statistics when we were sitting, before they're almost trying to build it. It took 5 people moving the face of this creature and stuff like that.
Well, I believe that.
Yeah, but as a whole, pretty good.
Okay,
fair enough.
I enjoyed most of the movie. The non-dialogue-y parts I really enjoyed. There were definitely some good dialogue in it, but you could tell that it was written by 2 people, because some of the dialogue was good and some of the dialogue was really bad. And so aside from that, I actually thought that the 2 leads were pretty good. They had decent chemistry. I liked the concept that he is just getting out of prison. This is the first time he's seen his wife in a year and a half. So I kind of liked where they were going with that, but they just, like you said, with the pacing, they just took too long at the beginning. It took 30 minutes to get into it, and I was just like, at 15 minutes, I was like...
It took 30 minutes before they got to what I would have considered the beginning of the actual movie.
Yeah, the opening.
Like, no, I mean, if we had just started on these 2 driving and stuff, and stopping and getting into it there, that, to me, was the beginning of the movie. Like, there was a good 15 minutes of... relationship or world building as it was, that was just like, God, it was just too long. They could have achieved it so much faster.
Yeah, and it was kind of unnecessary, because I truly believe that when you have a film like this where you're going to be following these 2 leads through the whole thing, you don't need to spend that much time, because people can...
No, you take the time to give that development along the way.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
But overall, I did enjoy the film. I thought it was definitely worth seeing in the theater, because the gore was great, the monster was great, the scenery was amazing, so like all those things, and then the gang of hunters was funny. So they, like you said, a lot of good, a little bit of bad.
I couldn't help but, having just watched Children of the Corn the other night, see a very, very similar parallel to the beginning of the film. Couples fighting, they're driving down like a lonesome highway kind of place. Someone runs out in front, and it's in the first few minutes of the movie.
That's not just Children of the Corn. That's
that's like commonly seen trope.
How many movies have we watched recently where the opening is just a car driving for 85 shots of like shaky cam? It's like that whole opening title sequence was completely unnecessary, and that's part of the pacing. I think that. It's like,
and luckily none of the rest I was like, if the rest of the movie is as shaky and annoying as this is, I'm going to be pissed at the end of this. Luckily it wasn't.
Right. And also the drone shots looked like a lower quality of film than drones inside the car.
Yeah,
and it wasn't the best drone operator, because some of the movements were not quite fluid.
Dave's continuity eye is like, they literally had the drone for one day at that one stretch of road, and they used that fucking shot 8 times throughout the film. Which is fine when you're low budget, but at the same time, like, if I catch
here's the thing. She's driving that direction on her way to pick him up, and she picks him up, and then they're still going the same direction.
Right, at the exact same spot.
No, maybe it was on the way. She didn't have to turn around.
They stopped at a gas station, and then all of a sudden she's back 20 miles out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there were a couple things that might bother you continuity-wise, but I think as a whole, like, I think they did a really good job when it came to the production design and all that. If we're going to start getting into
let's talk about the story first.
Okay.
So yes, it starts off with an estranged wife, only because her husband's been in prison for 1 year, 1 month, and 9 days.
Wow.
And they have a very strained relationship because of this, obviously. But very soon they pull off to the side of the road and.
Fighting over the radio. That was kind of cute.
But again, we've seen it a million times.
Yeah.
And
it just felt awkward. That whole sex scene at the beginning just felt awkward.
Well, yeah, awkward sex when you haven't seen your wife and it's.
Anyway, but nonetheless, they get sort of accosted by rocks from the woods.
Yeah.
And he gets knocked into the woods and down a cliff into the water.
That whole scene was very elaborate.
Yeah, it was so much of the budget went towards this, even though like
how do you get him out in the middle of nowhere? That's kind of how you do it. So,
but anyway, they get she jumps in after him because he's knocked out in the water, and they get swept downriver a good ways into the woods, and they essentially have to try and find their way out. When suddenly they realize they are being stalked by... Actually, they don't even realize at this point they're being stalked by something. They just are trying to find their way out.
Well, somebody stole their clothes, which I felt like, her
very
clothes
convenient.
are missing, and then they're like, oh, they're just not here, and then they move on. And I would be like, where the fuck are my clothes?
Just his, too, so just hers, rather, so it didn't make a lot of sense.
Once again, very convenient since she's quite pretty.
So they don't know they're being stalked, but... they are, but they're just simply trying to find their way out of the woods. Then they happen across this group of hunters that Dave mentioned earlier, that they had encountered even earlier in the film during all of the preamble up until the actual movie. And so they essentially, they're not the friendliest group of hunters. They're obviously, not good guys.
Yeah, there's tension when they first ran into them.
Exactly.
Right?
And so once they sort of have no choice but to follow these guys, then sort of things start to happen with the creature, the Bigfoot, that starts to try and attack them. And that's while this is going on. Then we find out that back, in civilization, as it were, there's a sheriff that gets called out to where the 911 call was placed by the wife at the side of the road before they get attacked by the rocks. And so he goes out to find out what's going on, and he is a Native American sheriff that I guess this county or whatever it is borders a reservation, not unlike us here in Arizona.
Right.
Oh,
yeah. But he sort of starts to try and figure out what's gone on and where the couple that were in the car have gone. And his sort of subordinate at the sheriff's office is saying it's the Oma, it's the Native American legend of the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch. And the sheriff just doesn't believe it, but that's essentially the A story and the B story of the film. And the interesting thing that or the most interesting aspect of the story was to me not that it was a typical Bigfoot, stalk and yank someone off the path kind of thing. This Bigfoot is tactically prepared. Like he utilizes guerrilla warfare, which I think is a bit of a meta joke when you think about it. But I don't know. So that's I actually, while parts of the story were really flat, some of the things they did were kind of interesting. What did you guys think of the story?
I personally did not like the fact that he used weapons and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty stoops. That did not work for me. I wanted him to be more creature, less man, but I guess the Sasquatch is supposed to be somewhere in between, so I suppose that's forgivable. In the Beast story, I did find it interesting, though, the fact that this aging Native American guy had kind of disavowed his heritage to some degree, and that gave him a little bit more depth as a character, and the fact that he needed convincing from the younger guy, who I kind of thought was his son, honestly. I think there was one line in particular at one point, maybe he just called him son or something like that, but he kind of slowly, opens back up to it, and he's like, well, maybe this could be the legend that I heard as a child, but later in the film, it kind of makes you believe, he had a feeling all along, and I guess he did. But once again, it was just a little long in the tooth. But by the books tropes aside, they redeemed themselves for me with Carnage and with once the film actually got going. Although I must say, when two people both fall into the same cold water, and yet one of them is the only one who's suffering and shaking and all this other stuff, when you were both in the same water, damn it. And it just, that part, the logic just irritated the hell out of me. So, and, the film has a few moments like that, but I still had fun, so, yeah, there you go. Dave, what about you, man?
I thought overall the story was pretty basic. There wasn't really this overarching, real story. It was survival.
It was kind of thin,
yeah, it was just survival. I think you hit the nail on the head that the real story was this Native American sheriff who had to reconnect with his roots. He had to go through the ceremony.
That was the more interesting bit.
But then they cut the scene. They must have cut the scene.
Yeah, because there was something missing.
Because he, our hero wakes up and then the sheriff explains everything and he's on board now. So, in between the dream peyote sequence and in the morning, they cut a scene or something that didn't work, and so instead we got this massive talk, not tell,
exposition,
and that kind of bothered me a little bit. I liked the Native American aspect. I love whenever I see Native American stuff in film. I loved the Oma, the witch lady was.
I thought the dancing in the tent was pretty cool.
It was cool.
It was filmed well.
The TP scene, again, but a little indulgent.
Yeah, sorry.
But a little indulgent, because it went on, it could have gone on for 30 seconds, but it went on for 3 minutes. So I feel like, again, that was part of the pacing issue where it was like, we can show, this cool stuff for a trippy sequence, but really you only needed to show it for a few, maybe a minute at the most. But I did I liked the redeeming factor of the guy. Once we get to the ending of the story, we got. I liked that he.
It was actually dual redemption.
Yeah, he kind of explained the Chiefs. This is what the Chiefs turn into when they're whatever. So they tried, and I think they made a good effort with trying to get the legend of the Oma. So I thought that was cool, and but overall, I didn't think the story was that thick. It was more of these two people are stuck in the woods and they don't have any friends.
Right, and they needed cannon fodder, so they bring in this abnormally large group of hunters.
Well, I did kind of I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, okay, is this meat cannon?
Literally, it was cannon fodder, but it's it is what it is. Let's talk about the cannon fodder, or the acting, as it were.
Yeah.
I thought, Dave, you said the two leads were okay for you. I thought the male lead was a little weak.
I thought they were both weak, but
they had chemistry.
They kind of worked together.
They were weak together.
She definitely had a transformation. She was much stronger in the back half of the film than she was at the beginning of the film.
And the moment of transformation, I hate. I don't like.
Are we going to talk about this?
No,
because
we're not going to talk spoilery now.
Oh man, because I don't even know if I wanted to ask you guys.
I wondered too.
That happened.
I was pretty sure it did.
Yes.
Yeah. I need a drink.
I couldn't believe I was watching that.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, we're going to go there.
Yeah, and I was like, there's no time. There's nothing anyone's gonna do.
But
I'm like, this. We're literally.
Then I gotta say she was a bad actress in that scene.
Yeah.
Because she didn't sell it to me.
Well, anyway, let's. What about the other actors? I thought the sheriff was good.
Sheriff was good.
Yeah,
and
sheriff was good.
Yeah, it turns out that we found out at the end of the film that this movie was actually dedicated to him.
Yeah, he passed. And also the lead hunter guy, I liked him. He reminded me a little bit of the kind of like 80s action hero kind of guy, like actor. I don't know why. Just kind of reminded me of that kind of like chauvinistic macho guy.
He reminded me more of
the villainous edge.
Yeah, the villain of those types of things, if anything.
Yeah. I did think that the dialogue between the hunters was very funny. They definitely had laugh out loud moments.
But I didn't think any of the hunters were particularly,
well, they were just hunters.
Like, they're just literally just, this guy is this guy, this is the over-sexual guy. This is the dunce that thinks everything's funny. This is the, it's just like, this is the big fat guy that's, just loyal.
And I almost felt like there was too much humor in those bits, though, because, like, for every joke that would hit, there was, like, 2 or 3 others where I was just, like, facepalm, like, what the hell, man? Like, they were trying too hard.
Yeah, this definitely had some cringy moments.
There was some bad... B actors, lower level actors, as far as the cast list goes. Like the woman outside the sheriff's office.
Just thinking
God, she was the worst, dude.
See, that's the scene you should have cut instead of that other scene, which might have been worse.
I don't know. Well, that's the thing. When you think about the 2 characters that were supposedly conversing in the scene that was cut, and one of them, the only actual words we ever got from that character otherwise was this witch laugh. I imagine that scene was filmed and didn't work, like you said. So, anyway, the acting overall is mediocre to not great. But that leads us to the more redeeming qualities of the film, which were the production. I guess you can't really call it production design because
absolutely.
It's just,
because somebody had to go out there and find all those spots.
Yeah, that's
and they
true.
picked, and some of those spots were absolutely gorgeous.
It's true.
You can't go wrong filming in Northern California woods, but. Yeah, overall there wasn't a lot of production design. There was a little bit of costuming, there's like 2 indoor scenes.
Right.
Her little cabin, the couple of things that she had, the costumes were really good.
I thought the cinematography was pretty good.
Yeah,
there was a lot of overused things in the film. They went to certain things too many times, specifically when characters walk out of frame and then you see something move back behind a tree. They use that way too many times.
Yeah, about 10 too many times.
Quite a bit.
But
yeah, like the tree with the hand, and then the guy would sneak behind the tree. Yeah, but that was at the beginning. That was a good way of showing the creature without.
But it was still too many times.
But yeah,
it was too many times.
In the end, it was too many.
And I guess the reason it was too many times is because there was so much time of them just walking and him not doing anything that they had to do that to be like, let's keep it interesting. Let's show him again.
Let's show the fin in the water.
Trimming would have been good here, guys.
Yeah. But let's talk about what we really want to talk about, which are the effects.
The creature!
I think we need to talk about the creature, and then we need to talk about the sort of gore from the kills. So what do you want to hit first, Fuego?
Definitely the creature. I thought especially the weird, like you see it in the trailer, so it's not super spoiler. Like the weird skull mask kind of thing that he
armors himself.
Yeah, I like that.
He had shin guards and like
and
arm guards and a back guard.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it's sort of made out of tree, so it's also camouflage.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool added touch. See, that's
Seasoned
the thing,
hunter.
But that goes along with him using tools and having those weapons of death. He's got little things that he's made himself, and like you can tell. That's what I liked about it. When he fires the arrow at one point, it's a massive
because it's forest made.
And
not professional stuff.
it's the size of him. That's that little detail. Adding that little bit of detail to the fact if he's going to use these sort of tactics. Go all the way and make sure it's not like a human-sized arrow kind of thing. Well, I like that.
Well, and also when there's a revelation about the nature of this creature and why it's more on the humanoid side, that's where I guess, even though I had a problem with it initially, maybe once I let that sit in. And,
that's true. I didn't even make that connection, but you're absolutely right.
A little bit more.
Because he used the same sort of tools that they do. Yeah. Yep. So you know what? You just convinced me even more. Once I think about
that, well, I'm convincing myself here on camera after talking smack at the beginning. I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. There was a little more thought put into this than I wanted to credit it for initially.
Well, it definitely has appeal as a feature film. Like, it's not one of these films where you're just like, you watch 10 minutes of it and you're like, oh boy, I can't watch the rest of it. No,
I was waiting to see what happened.
Yeah. And
because it's going to get to the good stuff, it just takes an inordinately long amount of time to get to the good stuff.
So can we actually mention specific kills or no?
No. Let's
Okay.
well let's finish talking about the creature first. What did you think?
Well, because here's what I was going to say about the creature. What I thought was great, they didn't use CG.
No.
None.
Number one, that's
All
the
practical.
best. That was the best thing
Yeah.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, there were moments where it was guy in the suit.
Mm-hmm.
But
One in
but that
particular.
was more of the kind of wider shots.
Mm-hmm.
The close up stuff was so good with
Yeah.
the face, and like I said before, they kind of reminded me of the Congo apes. So it was a little
but
scary.
more advanced, I thought.
Yeah.
The face was really good. Like
Yeah.
I definitely it's so interesting to me that I was really like I was convinced. I was like this thing, and there's something that it does at one point with its lips, that was like really unnerving.
It was
very
it was like
predatorist.
super
Predatorist.
baboon mixed with like a predator. Like
Yeah. It was really really neat though. So the
But overall,
Bigfoot
like
himself.
I was gonna say, like that.
And they utilized
Yeah,
the
whenever
big
they
feet.
do show the creature, it looks great.
Well, and he utilizes his big feet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
And the big hands.
yeah, that's true. When they show and that
They show
that
his
hand
finger
looked
is
really
like this
good.
big on her face.
Yeah, and it looked really good
Yeah.
because you could see it was an actual dude's knuckles and stuff. You
Well,
know,
the
like-
director is 6'8", and he also played one of the Bigfoots.
Oh, that makes sense.
So,
Yeah, that
you know.
huge hands. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's do talk about the gore and the kills, which it's not quite Hatchet level, but there was
that reminded
a
me.
sort of a Hatchet throwback one. And it's not as sort of blood spurty as Hatchet, but it is just as unrelentingly gushy and smashy and stuff like that.
I honestly think that with the first mangled person we see, I was just like, okay, this is going to be gorier than I had initially anticipated,
Right.
and that was a
Guy in
plus.
the
Like,
room.
that guy looked good. I mean,
Yeah.
that was some good practical. And
All the practical gore was amazing.
Although one of the
really
deaths
well
was
done.
super choreographed by the lead hunter, and he's like, "I swear he'd lose his head if it wasn't attached." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I wonder what's gonna happen to that guy." Jeez.
There was.
but we see like heads on stakes and
Yeah,
all kinds of
yeah.
stuff.
I mean,
His lair is cool.
I'm gonna call it the jaw gag. So when you watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
The jaw gag was
That
good.
that actually got to me because I was like, oh man, not only did this happen to the guy, but he's not even dead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And then I also really liked how the weapons that it did use, it was like an expert at. So like it wasn't like the arrow like wounded someone. It was like, no, if you get hit with the arrow, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And if they
Unless it doesn't want you to.
right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the creature, like between the gore and the creature, I think they blended it really well.
Mm-hmm.
So it was seamless. It didn't feel like, we're just doing an insert shot of the gore. It felt like the creature was actually there doing the gore.
Yeah, and
Season
like I said, there's a lot of smashy, gushy goodness in there.
That's which leads us to the sound design, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was so much cracking, smushing, gushing.
I like
kinda
the
noises.
design of his growls and gurs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all that stuff too.
was good.
His presence being felt like all around the theater. I thought that they did a good job of that.
Oh yes, and the stomping through the mud and the sludge and stuff like that. I mean, you really felt like you were right there along with it, trying to scamper away from this big old bastard.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Now the other thing I will mention though is I thought that a few of the scenes were too dark.
Yeah,
I thought
lots
that
of that dark blue kind of
a lot of the dark blue stuff, but even
Well-
inside the sheriff's office, they were talking in a dark room for
Yes.
absolutely no reason, and I'm
Yes.
like, no, guys,
I can
throw
barely
a
make
fucking
out
light
like
on.
a
Yeah, I
silhouette,
can't even
man.
like it's
Well-
it's not doing you any favors. And then some of the Bigfoot kill stuff I thought was too dark too. They could have upped the light to give it a little bit more show.
Hiding stuff.
Yeah.
Could have been hiding stuff.
I was
Well, and I
gonna
was
ask
also
if
going
Dave
to
thought
say,
that was deliberate.
I read that they shot this film in February over 2 years, and the first year that they shot, it was during the drought. So it was blue skies every day. So they had a hard time matching the lighting. So they had to bring in all this drape and fog machines and all this stuff to try to match the lighting so that it would feel like it was the same, because it was essentially, it takes place over a day and a half or 2 days. So, I think they struggled. So I think, they might have in post, they might have just been like, okay, let's just make everything look the same because we shot on this bright day and then this dark day, and then they got to make it all look even.
That's got to make it tough.
That's
man.
hard, yeah,
Post,
that's
that
tough.
sucks.
But overall, I think it was serviceable for what it was.
It
If
was
you
a
go in
confidently
and just
made-
you could go in and just sort of fast forward to when the couple
minutes.
joins up
Yeah.
with the hunters.
Yeah.
From then on, the rest is a good, a good solid film.
Yeah.
But
I was entertained enough. I mean, no revelation or anything, but solid for what it did, and with the few sprinklings of new ideas about the mythology of the Sasquatch, that did raise the bar on it compared to some other really schlocky, low-budget stuff that I've seen.
I'll tell you what you
this
should
was
do.
not that.
Invite a couple friends over that you know would enjoy it, and split the $10 amongst yourselves. And then it's worth the VOD.
$3.99.
Yeah, give it a try, guys. I think it's definitely worth the price of a VOD if you're a fan of Gore and or Bigfoot.
Yeah. Especially if you like Bigfoot.
I'm going to be honest. I think it's the best Bigfoot I've seen, and I haven't seen Goldthwait's Bigfoot
It's
movie.
terrible. There's no Bigfoot at all in it.
So I definitely think it's one of the best Bigfoot movies. I mean,
I
Harry and the
thought
Hendersons.
Exists.
It's no Harry and the
Exists
Hendersons.
was the best one I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Exists was the best one I've seen.
Agreed.
So far. But,
Agreed.
I think this one's, definitely more Bigfoot than Exists.
Yeah.
Oh, and also this was better than a lot of those like lost and being stalked by bears crap that we've seen lately too, because there's been a ton of those. So,
Ooh, man, there's a particular bear I can't wait to talk about in our next review. So, all right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and call this review here for Primal Rage. Make sure you check it out if it sounds interesting to you. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, Jaime and Fuego.
And I'm producer Dave.
Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you very much.
Check out our working link to our Teespring store.
TeePublic.
TeePublic.
And until next time, remember,
Stay scared.